Our fourth coach of Tuesday at SEC Media Days is the only undefeated head coach with us this week. Zach Arnett is 1-0, having led Mississippi State to the ReliaQuest Bowl victory back in January. He's also, I think, the youngest coach in the SEC and the first coach of Hispanic descent in the Southeastern Conference. He is the first former defensive coordinator to be named head coach at Mississippi State since Jackie Sherrill way back in '91 when Jackie took over. Zach played his college football at the University of New Mexico on the defensive side of the ball, logging 200 career tackles, tied for the bowl subdivision lead with 6 forced fumbles in his senior year, passed up the opportunity to play college baseball at New Mexico, despite having hit .477 from a batting average standpoint with 20 home runs in high school. He was an academic All-American, graduated from New Mexico with a bachelor's degree in history and minor in political science, and was working at a hardware warehouse, Cooper State Bolt and Nut. You got to get Cooper State Bolt and Nut in there, maybe Copper State, given where they're from, where he got a call to be a graduate assistant football coach. And his conversation with Mike Leach, who I referenced yesterday, when he was offered the defensive coordinator job, was a 3-hour phone conversation. His house is on 5 acres, and a couple years ago, some of our SEC Network talent questioned, do you have any head football coaches who mow their own lawn? Zach does so when he has time, which is less and less and less. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Mississippi State University head football coach, Zach Arnett.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Sankey, for that introduction. Obviously, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Real quickly, before I start out, I would like to acknowledge and mention that I have seen the graphic listing the word count for every head coach's opening statement last year at this event, and Coach Leach's was 7. 7 words. And so, I've already said too much, and that combined with wearing a tie, I'm sure I've disappointed him a little bit here today. But in recognition of his tremendous impact and influence not only the game of football but on myself, right, I'm going to do my best to keep this short and sweet. Obviously, for coaches, media days is kind of the unofficial kickoff to football season. Right, you get back in this environment. Clearly, you look around, right, and you can see in the SEC it does just mean more. It's not a slogan. All right, but this is kind of the unofficial kickoff football season for football coaches. Right, get your competitive juices flowing, get you excited and energized for the work ahead in August in training camp and then throughout the fall and the season. So starting off, first and foremost, I want to talk about the most important part of any program, the players, all right? I'm lucky enough to have 3 players here with me today who embody all that is good about college athletics, in particular Mississippi State football. All right, on offense, we got our quarterback, Will Rogers, and running back, Woody Marks. And on defense, our defensive tackle, Jaden Crumity. Okay? And rather than stand up here and read off their stats and accolades, and I'll just simply say this. And if we polled our entire football program, players, coaches, everyone in the building, and if we polled everyone involved in the program and told them to name the most consistent guys in our program in terms of how they show up to work every day, right, with work ethic, the level of effort with which they play the game with, right, these 3 seniors would be at the top of that list. Okay, I mean, simply put, right, they are football guys. They are Mississippi State guys. Right, they embody the Bulldog mentality. Okay, and we are really fortunate as a coaching staff. Right, we have at least a dozen more seniors back in Starkville right now, just like these guys. Okay, we have a core group of returning upperclassmen and senior and junior class who've played a lot of football, and they know what it takes to compete and win and the level of strain that is required in this conference. All right, so hopefully under their leadership, all right, by the end of August and by the end of training camp, hopefully those same 2 things, all right, will be said about our entire football team. right, that we show up to work and we play the game the way it's meant to be played, the way it's supposed to be played. All right? I'm humbled and proud to be the head football coach at Mississippi State University. All right, a place where you can compete at the highest level in the best conference in all college football. You can get a world-class education, and your dreams can become a reality. All right? Just ask the likes of Dak Prescott, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, Darius Slay, all right, Charles Cross, Emmanuel Forbes, also Johnny Cooks, right, who we just lost. May he rest in peace, and obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. All right? But it's guys like the ones I just mentioned above, all right, along with many others in our program, those who have come before, past and present, right, that have paved the way and led this program to one of its most successful periods in all its history. Okay? Last year we won 9 football games, 4th time in the last 9 years, 13 consecutive bowl games, right? 5 first-round picks in the last 5 years. Hey, simply put, our fan base has much to be proud of. All right? This has been a tremendous time in Mississippi State football history, and we thank them for their continuous support. All right? It is without doubt, and you all know this, it is without doubt that we have the most loyal fan base in all of college athletics. All right? And those fans are a very big part of what makes Starkville, Mississippi such a special place. Mississippi State has forever changed my life and that of my family. All right? For that, I'm forever indebted to it, to Mike Leach, right, to all of Starkville. Okay? I could not ask for a better collection of people, players, coaches, support staff to go to work with on a daily basis. We keep it pretty simple and common sense in our football building. All right, as we approach training camp, all right, let's go to work. All right, then let's line up. Let's roll the ball out there and let's play a football game and may the best team win. So with that, I'll conclude Hail State, and I'll open it up to questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Morgan, Thomas, and Lauren will have microphones, and we'll get one to you. We're going to start, Coach, right here in front of you along this aisle.
Hey, Zach, Colin Wilson with the Action Network. Kevin Barbay had some great running backs at Central Michigan, Appalachian State. What drew you to him as offensive coordinator?
Yeah, obviously we talked to a lot of different candidates in this offensive coordinator search. All right, and the first question to every single one was, all right, tell me what your offense looks like. What's it going to look like? What's the identity out there? And obviously you get a lot of different answers. And I think the most refreshing thing, talking to Coach Barbary, Kevin, was when I asked that question, the response was, well, I can't tell you that until we figure out who the best 11 players are. And that was refreshing to hear, that level of humility, because that's how I was brought up in this business. The guys I learned from on the other side of the ball was, right, you don't determine what your scheme is on defense, who you line up there, until you figure out who your best players are. Right? Because ultimately, that's the job of a coach, to get your best 11 players on the field. Then obviously, you got to have it 2 deep, so you got to figure out who your top 22 are. So to hear that from him, that was refreshing, that level of humility. Kevin's done a really good job everywhere he has been, right? Very efficient on the opposite side of the ball, and yet very good at creating explosive plays. And everywhere he's been, it's looked a little bit different because the players are different, right? Your job on offense is to get the ball in your most explosive players' hands, right? Hopefully in as much space as possible so they can do what they do, right? And he recognizes that. He's been really good at doing it everywhere he's been. Obviously, we got started on that job in spring practice, and we're continuing that process. But we're going to figure out who are the best 11 guys to have out there on the field to give us the best chance to move the ball and score points. If that's 10 personnel, we'll be in 10 personnel. If that's an 11 or 12, we'll be in that. But simply put, right, players and coaches do not influence coaches in the scheme do not influence and affect the players. The players influence the scheme that you run. All right, so we're going to figure out who our best players are and get them out there in position to be the most successful so we can move the ball and score points.
Coach, we'll go in the section in the middle, right in front of you, second row, around the right.
Hey, Coach, Jordan Davis for Clarion Ledger. You've said before that you believe with the way that the program is headed that the Bulldogs can truly compete for a spot in the college football playoff next year as it expands. What are the values that you begin to implement in the culture early on to make sure that that dream is a reality?
Yeah, I don't particularly remember saying specifically putting a date on that or next year, but I simply say I look back at history. All right, the college football playoff is going to expand to 12 teams moving forward. Okay, and you look back to the season. First college football playoff poll came out. Mississippi State was the number 1 ranked team in the country in that poll. All right, you look back to some of the years they've had, without a doubt. Right, when they had Dak Prescott. There's 4 9-win seasons in the last 9 years. You can look back to that special season with Dak Prescott, I believe it was 2014. Right? If that's a 12-team playoff, they're in the playoff. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. There's data to look back on and go, yeah, if you can recruit and put a team on the field at that high of a level and have that level of success in this league, you're in the expanded playoff. Right? And we're fortunate as coaches. Right? We live in the most fertile recruiting ground there is for college football players. All right, in the state of Mississippi, and then you expand out from there, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, right, Tennessee, Georgia. I mean, if you can't find players in this footprint, then you ain't gonna be a coach very long. And so the players are all around us. We got to do a good job in the evaluation process and then the recruiting process and showing them that they can achieve all their dreams. Everything's there for them at Mississippi State.
Which will stay up front here, second row, right on the near aisle. Bob.
Hey, Zach. Bob Holt, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. You didn't have any prior SEC experience until you came to Mississippi State, and if I read some stuff correctly, you had some chances to leave. Why did you decide to stay? How did Mike Leach, working with him, prepare you for this? And are you going to still, be your own coordinator and call the plays on defense?
Yeah, a couple questions in there. When I came to the SEC, obviously I had not worked in this area of the country before. I've had a really charmed coaching existence, right? I've really worked at 2 places. I was at San Diego State for 9 years, and then I had the opportunity to come here, been here the last 3. Obviously, when you're a young coach, you get a chance to be a defensive coordinator, and the opportunity arises to coordinate defense in the SEC, particularly SEC West. I mean, you pack your bags and you'll walk there on your own for that opportunity, right? That's an opportunity of a lifetime. And so it was a no-brainer decision for me to come here. Obviously, I think I had the greatest job in all the country, and defensive coaches I've talked to and guys who are my close friends and mentors and guys I reach out to for advice. When I tell them what it's like being the defense coordinator for Mike Leach, right, the freedom and the autonomy you have and the confidence that he puts in his defensive coordinator, to run it as he sees fit, I think that's the best defensive coordinator job in the country. And so I was really blessed the last 3 years. You talk about whether my name was rumored for other jobs or not, or whether I was in the mix. I had as good a situation. I had a better situation in terms of being a defense coordinator here at Mississippi State than anywhere in the country. And so I was happy here. Me and my family live in Starkville. And you ask if I'm going to continue to be the defensive coordinator, play caller. Yeah, no, I'm not. And I've got experience with that. Obviously, as a head coach in a bowl game, and leading up to that, I did not think I could prepare as well as the other defensive coaches with all the other hats and responsibilities I was wearing. And so I gave over play calling duties in that bowl game to Matt Brock, who is our linebacker coach at the time. He's our defense coordinator now, because I knew he'd do a better job of preparing and calling the defense in that game. And obviously, he did just that. He called a heck of a game. We played really good defense. In my opinion, it was a no-brainer. Matt was a very successful special teams coordinator already in his career. He's been a Broyles Award finalist as a special teams coordinator. I think you talk with anyone who's ever worked with him or had experience with him, he's probably about the hardest working, most prepared guy on any staff he's ever been on. And so I have complete trust, faith, and confidence in him leading our defense. And we spend a lot of time together bouncing ideas off each other. And I know he's going to do great things with our defense.
Coach, we'll go in the center aisle, about maybe 3/4 of the way back.
Hey, Coach, Chris Phillips, the Spurs Up Show. You return a pair of 100-plus tackle linebackers in Jet Johnson and Nathaniel Watson. Just talk about what they mean to your defense in the middle and what you guys are hoping to accomplish this season.
Yeah, we got a lot of returning guys on our football team. Obviously, you talk about that defensive front. We got, like I said, defensive tackle Jaden Cromedy here along with others. But it's nice when you got the 2 leading returning tacklers in the SEC coming back. You feel pretty good about your front, your front 6, front 7 on defense. We got a whole lot of guys who they could have put their name in the transfer portal and gone somewhere else, coming off great seasons, and they didn't, right? And I think that speaks volumes about how they feel about our program, the directions it's headed. Like you say, you mentioned Jet and Buki. Now we need them to take the next step in their game. All right? They made a lot of plays for us last year, and now we need them to elevate their game and bring the other guys along, right? Put their arm around those younger guys who are going to have to fill their shoes after this year and lead them on a daily basis how it is you go about preparing and doing your work so you can have that success come Saturdays in the fall. But there's a lot more that goes into that, than just showing up on game day and playing. And so those guys, we expect big things from them. We need them to have big years if we're going to be as good as we can be on defense, and then we need them to lead and show the other guys underneath them.
Coach, we'll stay in the same area, just right across the aisle.
Yeah, Coach. Brooks Austin with Dogs Daily. You guys run a very unique defensive scheme, odd front, multiple front, up front. Where does your defensive ideology come from? Who are some guys that you maybe not necessarily stole from, but learned from? And how do you coach gap integrity when y'all do so much different stuff?
Yeah, it's funny you said stole from, and I'm glad you said that because that's constantly what coaches are doing, right? That's what you watch film, right? You're trying to steal ideas. May make them into your own a little bit, but it's I think it's kind of fortuitous that I'm at Mississippi State. Obviously, everyone in our fan base knows about the impact and influence of Joe Lee Dunn, all right, and his defenses there in the past. I had the privilege, I grew up in Albuquerque, went to my local university, University of Mexico. Head coach there at the time was Rocky Long, right? He'd been running this defense for a number of years already. He worked with Joe Lee Dunn in the past. Then when he became a coordinator, I think it was at Oregon State at the time, he had spent more time visiting with Coach Dunn, in Mississippi and learning more about the defense. And Coach Long's been doing a long time in this defense, a 3-3-5, and it's kind of evolved it to fit the modern game. Obviously, I was lucky enough to play under him, work under him, and it's the only defense I've ever been in. Right? Now, again, at the end of the day, it's worked where we've been because it's fit the players we've had. But it always starts with players. You got to figure out who your best players are, and you got to get those guys on the field. So we've been a 3-3-5 for the last 3 years. If we're deeper at the D-line and all we got is them 2 inside linebackers who made all those tackles, and I guess we'll be a 4-2-5, right? I mean, some of it, the offense has some control over what you have on the field because you got to have certain number of DBs to match their receivers or vice versa, bigger guys for when they get in heavier sets. But, yeah, I've grown up in this defense, all right? And that's what the bond between me and Matt Brock kind of was instantaneous because although we're not from the same trees or backgrounds, our philosophies and viewpoints on defense are almost identical. And so it's been fun because as he and the other defensive assistants, David Turner, Darcel McBath, Brett Dewhurst, those guys in the meeting room, you get different ideas from them, and that allows you to grow and evolve your defense.
Coach, we'll go back over to the section in front of me over on the far aisle. Drew?
Yes, Coach. I just wanted Drew DeArmond, WZZN Radio, Huntsville, Alabama. Once again, welcome to the SEC, Coach. As I head, and I know you're filling the shoes of a guy that everyone loved in Mike Leach, but good luck to you. But I wanted to ask you about a young man that's making a transition in your secondary. You took him out of the transfer portal, Marcus Banks. I know he's transitioning from corner to safety. What kind of progress has he made, and what kind of role do you envision him in Matt Brock's defense? Yeah,
Marcus, he goes by Speedy too. He's done a heck of a job since he showed up, right? He's a worker. He's done everything we've asked of him. He played more in the corner room a year ago, right? Now we see a really good role for him. It's in our safety room, but everyone calls it differently. Whether that's kind of your nickel, mostly plays the field. Whether that's a safety in some people's defense, or they call it the nickel corner. Sometimes in the NFL, that route tree you got to cover in the slot is pretty big, right? Because they got so much room to work. You're not as up close to the sideline. Now you are closer to your help in the post safety, but Marcus done a heck of a job. I mean, he can hold up to the physicality, right? So he can be a force in the run game, right? And then he's obviously got the skills to cover, or he wouldn't have been a corner in the first place. And so we're expecting big things from him. And for us to be as good as we can be on defense, we need him to step up and have a good year.
Coach, we'll stay in that same section right in front of me, about 3/4 of the way back.
Good afternoon, Coach. Kennington Lloyd Smith III from The Athletic. You referenced the word identity earlier. As you step into this role full-time, what is your vision for Mississippi State's football's identity under you moving forward?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've obviously gotten that question quite a bit over the last 8 months. I hope it's a continuation of the identity that Mississippi State's always had as a football program. Tough, hard-nosed, discipline, right? I mean, it's been acknowledged for a long time in this league, right? When you line up against Mississippi State, right, you better pack your lunchbox and hard hat because it's going to be a physical game, right? I mean, that's what Mike Leach wanted. And when I first interviewed with him and talked to him about what he thinks are the important things about developing a winning football program, right? It's not talking about scheme. It's all about the effort with which you play with, the physicality and the tenacity. Right? Simply put, being the most excited, passionate team who lines up on a field excited to play the game. All right? And that's kind of been Mississippi State's identity forever. I mean, that's who we are at Mississippi State. All right? So I hope it's a continuation of that identity. Because if we can ensure those things as we get through training camp, if we can have a football team who lines up excited to play, right, with a physicality and a determination, right, and a disciplined football team, you got a chance in every game, regardless of scheme. And I've been asked a lot of questions about scheme. Right? If you don't have the characteristics of a winning football team, all those things I've mentioned, how you play the game, the effort level, the toughness, right, discipline. If you don't have those things, it don't matter what scheme you employ on either side of the ball, you ain't got a chance. And if you have all those characteristics and you got good players, right, and you're not sabotaging them as coaches with a bad game plan, then it don't matter what scheme you run, you got a chance in every game. Right? Those are the fundamental core principles to winning football. Scheme is just, what it flows through.
Coach will go to the middle section, standing up about 3/4 of the way back, right down the middle.
Hey, Coach. Bruce Marshall, WHBQ in Memphis. Quick question about Mike Wright. I thought he was one of the most underrated players in the league last year at Vanderbilt. They won several games with him at quarterback. They don't beat Kentucky, and they don't beat Florida without him. He was dynamite. And I'm wondering how you think you might use him. Do you mix him with Will at quarterback, and how he might fit in to help you guys this year?
Yeah, I mean, Mike's obviously a really talented guy, like you mentioned, right? I mean, there ain't a lot of quarterbacks on the transfer portal market who got SEC victories on their resume. He's one of them. All right, he's incredibly athletic, talented. He can hurt you both with his arm and with his feet. I mean, make no mistake about it, right? I mean, Will Rogers is our starter, right? And his resume speaks for itself. But Mike, there's a lot of things Mike can do and wrinkles that we can add in the game plan that could allow us to be really dynamic on offense. And there are situations within a game, certain areas of the field down in distances where he can create some opportunities for explosive plays for you on offense. And so we had a need at the quarterback position. Right? We lost a couple kids to the transfer portal. They decided that a better location would be a better fit for them. And we were able to go out and get like you said, a proven guy who's got SEC experience, starts under his belt, who's won games in this conference, to have him come in and provide depth and then give us avenues to create more packages within the offensive game plan and generate more explosive plays. That's going to be a real asset to our offense.
Coach will go right in front of me, second row. Tom.
Hey, Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Following up on Bob's question, he asked about what aspects of maybe Mike Leach as a head coach that you might kind of maybe incorporate in what you do. And also, you spoke to the media as a defensive coordinator. I wonder how maybe that helped you in what you're doing today and what you've done as a head coach so far.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with that one. Obviously, I did have the privilege. Coach Leach did not have a gag order on me or the other coaches in terms of talking to the press. And so I haven't thought about it up until you asked that question. But obviously, yeah, I've had some experience having to get behind the podium and address questions from the press. And so that is experience that hopefully will serve me well as I transition into this new role. There's obviously a lot of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom that I received from Coach Leach over the last 3 years. I mean, simply put, I look at it as a blessing. I got to spend 3 years under what, in my opinion, is a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, his fingerprints and his impact on the game of football are evident throughout, particularly offensive play in modern football. You know, talking to our quarterback earlier, he goes, hey, you tell me an offense in college football who does not run Y cross or 95 as it's known in the air raid world, right? Every team you play every week runs that play. Right? That's a Coach Leach and Coach Mummy idea that has taken over the game of football. But again, there are a lot of things. There's a lot of slogans and words said in our building over the last 3 years, right? Don't listen to the noise. Play the next play. All things that were kind of the DNA of Mike Leach's program that we still say to this day. Right? And they're said in every other football building across the country. Maybe not in those exact words, but in other ways, right? Right? Control the controllables. Right? Worry about the things you can control. Right? All of those things. Those aren't just buzzwords or slogans or catchphrases that coaches say because they're good to have in a building. No, they're actually critical to winning football and right, developing a winning football team. All right? So a lot of the same things that were being preached over the last 3 years, well, my beliefs are the exact same as Coach Leach, all right, about what it is that goes into a winning football team. So we repeat a lot of the same things. And on certain walls, maybe some words are different or pictures change or whatever, but there is a lot that I have taken from Mike Leach and will continue to be an influence on our program moving forward.
Coach, we'll go to the middle section over to the right. Along the aisle. We have one over there? Nope. Okay, we'll go back over here to the left, on the left side.
Hi, Zach. Tyler Palmatier for the Oklahoman.
Sorry about that.
You and athletic director Zach Selman are in an interesting situation. You're both younger. You both got your jobs around the same time. What's it been like working with him in these last few months, both kind of taking on new roles and tackling a goal at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously, simple answer has been very good. You know, we have the privilege and luxury. We happen to work for a university president, right, who is about the most well-respected, well-regarded man in all of college athletics, and Dr. Mark Keenum, right? And his leadership, along with that of our athletic director, Zach Selman, I mean, it is evident, right, to anyone who sees it that we have the right people at the top of the organization guiding our athletic department. And so it's been fun to work with him on a daily basis. He's with me here today, actually, and it's going to be fun going forward.
Coach, thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hail State.